Hi, I'm Spencer Thomas. Initially, this was supposed to be one episode about the Jazzcaster I just built, but it ended up being so long that I've decided to divide it into two episodes, and that way it's two. This episode I'm going to talk about some issues I had putting the neck on my new guitar, how I dealt with some issues with the electronics building this guitar, and the hardware on this new guitar. So with that, here's episode 1 of the wrap-up of my Jazzcaster. So here's how the Jazzcaster came out, and what I learned working on it. We're Jazzcastering this week on Learning Curve. Hi, I'm Spencer Thomas. Thanks for watching Learning Curve. If you're new to the channel, I hope you will like, share, and subscribe. And if you could somehow make an NFT of my logo or image that will somehow make me insanely rich, much appreciated. Anyway, welcome. This week, I'm going to give you a wrap-up on the Jazzcaster I built this spring. I'm not going to go too deep because there are plenty of luthier videos out there that give you maybe a better take on things than I'm capable of, and I've already done a step-by-step video of a lot of stuff, but I do want to tell you a couple of the things I learned, show you a couple of mistakes I made, or things that I ran into that gave me problems, and how I fixed them, or at least put you on the path to how to fix them if you run into them yourself. So that's what we're going to do this week. I hope you enjoy it. So I'm going to start with the neck. The neck is a Guitar Fetish Basics. If you go look at their parts and bodies, there'll be a little tab. One of your choices is Basics. And this guitar neck is their glossy maple 22 fret Telecaster Basics. Costs $47 before shipping. Shipping was like 17 bucks. So $67 when everything was said and done. You know, the fret ends are fine. I had to level a couple of frets, but no more than any other guitar I've ever owned. It's very Strat-like. It is not a chunky neck. It is not a thick neck. I would say it's a C. It's a 9.5 inch radius. It's really comfortable. It's really easy to hook your thumb over the top. And honestly, it's a pretty fast neck. You can get the action pretty low on this. Now this guitar is very bright, and I don't think it actually has anything to do with the glossiness of the neck in reality, but my brain is like, boy, that glossiness really makes this guitar bright. I don't think that's accurate. And I don't find it particularly sticky. I know one of the complaints about glossy necks is that they're sticky, but at this point, I have not found it to be particularly sticky. Now, I did end up having to put a shim in this, and I don't blame the body or the neck for that, but the reality is the action was too low above the 12th fret and too high below the 12th fret without it, and once I put the shim in, I got really low, really fast action that I'm really happy with. There's a lot of debate about shims, there's a lot of debate about what you should use to do a shim, and there's a lot of arguments pro and con. I'm going to tell you what I did. I'm not going to tell you if I'm right. I used a piece of cardboard, and I've attached a link to the video below that explains why I used that piece of cardboard, and if in a couple of years that turned out to be a huge problem, so be it. If you use a piece of cardboard, that is your choice. Some people don't recommend it. Some people do. I did it. This is the first time I've ever used a piece of cardboard, so I'm not saying I necessarily recommend it, but it did work. But it's only been like a couple of weeks, so we'll find out. Now, I used Wilkinson tuners, and I ran into a problem that I haven't ran into before. I like Ernie Ball heavy bottom slinky tops. They are 52 to 10s, but on the Wilkinson tuners I had, you cannot fit a 52 through the little tuner hole. So I had to drill it out with a drill bit. I found that on some chat board. You know, I just used a regular drill bit, not the smallest, but the second smallest. And it worked totally fine. It was pretty simple. Again, I'm not sure if that's how you're supposed to do it, but that's what I did and it worked. So take that for what it's worth. Now, the nut was not great. I'm not going to lie. If there was anything wrong with this neck, it was definitely that nut. So it was a little high across the board, but when you really noticed it was when you played an E chord. We're still at the point where there's tweaking being done, but it just wasn't right. So I filed the G string down a little bit, and then it got better, but it was still like, now it felt weird and blah, 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 blah. Long story short, I replaced it with a Tusq nut. I used 2 pieces of cardboard under the high strings to shim that. Boy, lots of shimming. Lots of shimming. But I put 2 little squares of cardboard under the high E string, and now all the nut problems have gone away. I'm very happy with the Tusq nuts and have them on like 3 or 4 guitars in here right now. So there's that. I wanted to use my new soldering iron on the electronics, and my new soldering iron sucks. I don't know what the problem is. It does not get up to the temperature you need for solder to really flow easily, or it doesn't maintain it, or it's insulated weird or something. What I'm saying is I ended up, and I kept it so long, like I bought it because I knew this was coming up, but it was a while from the time that I bought it until I used it, so I couldn't send it back. So what I ended up doing was using the super stable base, which is what I bought it for, and then wrapping the cord of my old soldering iron around it and using my old soldering iron, which temperature-wise is good, but stability-wise is kind of less than good. And the base did what I needed it to. I could walk away from my soldering iron without being terrified that I was going to burn down my apartment. So that's nice. But man, bummer. Now, my initial plan was to use a push-pull pot so that I could split the bridge and the neck humbuckers. But when I hooked it up, everything worked fine, except the volume pot wouldn't turn down all the way. And I'm not exactly sure what the problem was. But I couldn't fix it, and I need it to be able to turn down all the way, man. So I swapped it out for a regular Born pot, and because I'm using 3 pickups and a 5-way selector, I can split the bridge and the neck pickup in positions 2 and 4 when they're with the middle pickup, which is what I use split coiling for anyway. It's pretty rare that I split the neck pickup by itself. I use it with the middle pickup so you get that strat 2 and 4 position, that quacky tone, and that's what I got. So that works out just fine. And I'm using Born. They're all Born pots. The push-pull I swapped out was a Born pot, and this is a Born pot because I like Born pots. But now this pot does its job just fine. So no worries there. I had another weird problem that I did 2 things about. I had a lot of excess lead wires for all the pickups, and I cut my ground and my output wires too long. All right, I don't have any electronics in it yet, but I just tuned it for the first time. I've not set the intonation yet. So I just shortened up the ground and the output wires and pulled or pushed the pickup wires back into the body cavity away from the controls, because when I was sealing up the control cavity, you know, like you tighten the screws and it would short out right at the end when everything got tight. So I removed, or I got a lot of extra wires out of the body cavity, and that helped. And then I also noticed one of the leads for the middle the lead for the middle pickup, the single coil, is kind of at the bottom of the arc of the pickup, and the end of it was a little long, and I didn't feel like cutting it would be a good idea, and I didn't want to resolder it, but I believe what was happening is when I closed the cavity for the controls, it was grounding out on the foil shielding that I'd lined the cavity with. So I put some electric tape on it, and that seems to have taken care of the problem. I hope I don't find out I'm wrong, but so far that seems to be what has worked. I don't know if that happens to you. That's the second time. Like, I like the Tele control plate because it's got everything right there. It's easy access. It's easy to work on, but sometimes it gets crowded in there, and then you have to fight with it a little bit to make sure things don't short out. But again, hopefully this is the solution, and we'll be just fine, and I can have the best of all possible worlds. I went with a traditional half bridge for two reasons. One, I like the way they look. I use compensated saddles. I've not really had a problem with intonation. But also, and this is maybe petty, and maybe I'm just being silly, but I don't like it when you're trying to string a modern bridge with modern saddles and you have to line up the little saddle thing with the string thing just right, or it always ends up taking like twice as long as it should. And with these guys, you just push the string through and then you don't have any problems. And I like that. I like that a lot. So that, and again, I think the vintage bridge just looks better. I think it makes it look more like a Tele. It's got more Tele vibe to it, and I wanted to retain that. So there. Now, if you look on the back, you'll notice the neck plate's got an F on it. And that F stands for Fender. Now, I didn't buy that neck plate because I'm trying to trick people into thinking that this is a real Fender. I bought that neck plate because I'd bought a couple of things off eBay, and then eBay was like, hey man, I heard you're buying a guitar. You want a neck plate? $4. And I'm like, yeah, I do. Good job, eBay. So if people ask, I'm just going to tell them that stands for yeah, it's a Partcaster. Got to learn about ferrules this time around. Now, this body comes with 3/8 inch ferrules, which is not standard issue ferrules. It's the other kind of ferrules. I think maybe bases? I don't know. I think that's maybe the deal. But there are ferrules that have little lips on them, and there are ferrules that are flush. The spacing of the strings determines which one you want to use. Well, this guitar wants to use flush ferrules, but I'd never ordered ferrules before, and I didn't know how to measure, and I didn't think to measure. So I bought the kind of ferrules with the little lips on them. And then I made this modern art monstrosity. And then I got to remove it. I did a little sort of looking for relicking in the process. Yeah, that's relicking. That's what that is. Trying to get them out with the pliers, try to pull them out, try to put a string through it and pull it out. What I ended up doing was heating up the ferrule, whatever it's called. I heated it up with a soldering iron, and that seems to soften the metal a little bit, and then you can work with your, then I just went at it with a pair of pliers, and that got it out. Now, the way I dinged up my back was by trying to pull it out with a set of pliers without loosening it up, and that did not work. So there's a lot of pulling involved in this. But I got them out, and I put the flush ones in, and the flush ones are great. And also, I think I was worried that I was going to gap out the holes a little bit, but I think the pressure of the strings pulling on the ferrules, really helps keep them in place. So that's taken care of. My brand new guitar has dings all over the back of it, but it's the back and it's going to get buckle rash anyway, so what are you going to do? Okay, so that was the first part of a two-part series. So next week I'm going to talk about the pickups and show you how the finish turned out. If you like Learning Curve, I hope you'll like, share, and subscribe. My name is Spencer Thomas. Thank you for watching. I hope you're being good to each other.